Wanting attention is fine, but needing it, that can sure get you in a bind.
Thank you for clicking on this video. I'm Brooke Makenna, but today we have an insane case to talk about. Not only is this a multiple murder case, this is also a missing persons case, but not in the way you're expecting. The missing person is the killer. So please make sure to thumbs up if you like my true crime videos, and let's get back into the story. So Patricia was born one of 6 children in Missouri, and she actually met Walter T. Jones in high school, and they quickly became lovers and high school sweethearts and got married in 1995 after they graduated high school. They moved away for a while Walter was in the Marines, but they came back a little while later to Missouri, to their hometown, and had 2 children at the time. Patricia was a file clerk and Walter was a car salesman. Unfortunately, 5 years into their marriage, Walter began acting upon or having a wandering eye, and a woman named Sharon Kinne walked in to Walter's dealership. He knew she was a widow because she was using the insurance payout from her last husband's death to buy this Ford Thunderbird. He helped her pick it out. This is where their affair began. But Walter did not know what Sharon was capable of. So who was Sharon Kinne? She was also born in Missouri, and she was said to be, even back in high school, a very eye-catching woman and knew how to handle the attention and get it and warrant more. And at 16, she actually met James Arthur Kinne, who she met in a Mormon church service and saw him staring at her. She was not one to wait for a man to come up to her, so she walked up to him at a church service and basically began seducing him, making him fall in love. Now, James was a 22-year-old college boy who was just back for the summer. He went to college back in Utah, and for Sharon, who all she wanted to do was get out of Missouri, this was like her one-trip ticket out of Missouri, and so she needed James to love her and take her with him. But fall came around and he went back to college and she stayed in Missouri. He said that he would write her letters, he would come back and see her all the time, but this wasn't enough for Sharon. So she devised a plan. She wrote a letter to him saying that she was pregnant and he was the father, and she knew that a Mormon man would come back and support the woman he impregnated. And he did that very thing. He returned to Missouri. They got married shortly after October 18th of 1956. And shortly after that, when James was at work, he came home to find Sharon crying on the bathroom floor, saying she had miscarried the baby. It's unknown if she was actually pregnant or if this was all a scam, but James began getting really excited, thinking he could finally go back to college. And at the time, they were living with James's parents, so they thought that maybe they could get out of there, but unfortunately, in his eyes, she got pregnant for real this time. The first one being with a little girl named Dana, and the next one being with Troy, their son. 4 years after they got married, around 1960, Sharon began an affair with a man named John Boldos. James knew of this and went to his parents many times to ask their advice, and they always said, just stick with it, try not to get a divorce, you can do it. But he just kept pressing that he really wanted one, and eventually confessed that to Sharon, that he couldn't handle it anymore. And basically the weekend he told her, he said he wanted to get a divorce that next Monday. On March 19th of that year, 2 days before James was going to file, a shot rang out from their house. Sharon said that she ran into the bedroom to see her daughter, 2-year-old daughter at this time, Dana, messing with her father's .22 semi-automatic pistol. And James had a bullet in his head where he was sleeping. Sharon said that Dana often played with her father's guns, and that right before the shot rang out, she heard him say, "How does this thing work, Daddy?" And this is what she told police when they got there. The gun had been recently oiled, so they couldn't get any fingerprints off of it, and so they decided to give Dana a test, the 2-year-old girl. They gave her a not loaded gun, and they told her to play with it. And she actually knew how to work the safety and pull the trigger. And so they thought, with Sharon's story, with this evidence, they had no other evidence that this was a murder, so they ruled James's death an accidental homicide. The police took this gun and kept it for evidence, but This left Sharon with an insurance policy for James that was $29,000, which would be $230,000 in today's time. And this is the money that she took and went from their home in Independence to Kansas City, where Walter worked, to buy her Ford Thunderbird. And only a month after her husband's death, she really wanted to have a second husband. Walter was doing just great with the whole sexual relations, friends with benefits thing, but he did not want to leave his wife. He refused. He did not want to marry Sharon. And this angered her greatly. And a month after she met Walter, she told him that she was pregnant and that he was the father. But instead of this going her way how she thought, how it worked with her first husband, James, he said he wanted nothing else to do with her and completely left. Now, he was at her house when she told him, and as he was walking out to his car, she ran out after him naked and screaming, saying that she was going to get him back for this. It took her one day to do that very thing. She called Patricia, Walter's wife's work, and told her that her sister was having the affair with Patricia's husband. Not her sister, who didn't exist. Patricia, who knew of her husband's affairs, decided to go anyway just to see what she had to say. On May 26th of 1960, that same year, Sharon drove Patricia out to Phelps Road, which is a popular parking space for lovers, and she told her the absolute truth, that she was pregnant with her husband's baby. Sharon's hopes were crushed when Patricia said that she didn't care and she was not going to leave her husband. Patricia did not return home that night, and Walter called the police and reported her as missing. Then he began to call people who knew her and got a lead because one of her coworkers that often carpooled with her actually said that he had dropped her off with an unnamed woman because she wanted to meet with her. And after getting a description, Walter called Sharon. Sharon admitted talking to Patricia and going with her, but only to confess to the affair. She said she dropped her back off at the home, and Patricia was talking to a man in a 1957 Ford, and that's when she left, and she did not know what had happened after that. This wasn't enough for Walter, though, and he went over to Sharon's house, where he held a key to her throat and threatened her. This scared Sharon enough that she actually called her other lover, John, who I talked about before, that was still her lover at the time, and they went to search for Patricia. Shortly after midnight of that night, John had found Patricia on Phelps Road. So all of a sudden, Walter's mistress knew where his wife was, and she was dead. She was in a black sweater and a yellow skirt, and she was shot 4 times by a .22 caliber pistol. Once in the head, once in the abdomen, and twice in the shoulder. The head was the shot that killed her. There were powder burns on her skirt that indicated that she was shot at close range. Sharon was immediately a suspect in this murder, but so was John, who kept insisting that he had found the body without the help of Sharon. So now Patricia's husband, her husband's mistress, and her husband's mistress's lover were all being questioned. I know, it's getting crazy. Walter and John both admitted to dating Sharon, and they said that they would take lie detector tests, whereas Sharon decided not to take a lie detector test and would only say oral statements and would not even sign a written statement that was written up for her. And the lie detector tests for both men came back saying that they were being truthful. But Sharon's own brother was brought in for questioning for her, and he wouldn't answer questions either. Sharon was arrested in her home at 11 p.m. on May 31st, the same day as Patricia's funeral. It was also said that they wanted to give her a second charge for murder of her husband, James, because there was such a small time frame in the amount of time these 2 murders happened, or 2 deaths happened, and also it was kind of the same MO. But her lawyers were really good. Her mother worked at a law firm, and so she got out on bail of $20,000 until her trial on June 16th. Sharon was only 21 at this point, had 2 kids already, 1 in her belly, and was waiting for trial for murder of not 1, but 2 people. The police could rule out that this was the same murder weapon because they had kept the first weapon that was used to kill James. But Sharon's lover, John, admitted to buying her a gun that fit the description of the one used on Patricia before her murder, to replace that other gun. The court decided to delay her trial for a year so she could have her baby, and on January of 1961 she had her baby, Maria Christine. But when the trial finally begun, it only took the jury 1.5 hours of deliberation to come to the conclusion that Sharon was not guilty of the murder of Patricia Jones. Not only did the courtroom erupt in applause, but one of the male jurors, which it was an all-male jury at the time, one of them walked up to Patricia and asked her for an autograph, which she signed. But she did return to jail to await the trial of her husband's murder, James Kinne. Now, this trial lasted only a few days, but the jury deliberated for 5.5 hours before saying that she was guilty of his murder and sentenced to life in prison. She was sent to the Missouri Reformatory for Women. But only 2 years into her sentence, she was granted a new trial because apparently her side, her defense, had not been given adequate jury selection. So a new trial began. But that one was also a mistrial because there were some conflicts of interest between the jurors and the prosecution. A new trial began, the third one, and it was a deadlock at 7-5. They could not come up with whether she was guilty or not. Another mistrial. While awaiting her third retrial, she actually got to go to Mexico on a trip with her new lover, Samuel Francis. When they first got there, they were very, very ill just from the traveling. But on the 4th day there, she felt pretty good, so decided to go to the bar, where she met a man named Francis Ordez. Now, he was a radio personality and really fell for her charm and took her back to his hotel room. Now, there was a shot that was heard by a hotel employee, and when she ran in, she saw Francis lying dead on the bed with Sharon holding a gun to her. Now, she had swung the gun from Francis to her, shot her in the arm before this employee was able to get out and go call the police while locking Sharon in this room. When the Mexican police got there, they listened to Sharon tell her story as she always had. She was very manipulative. She was very good at twisting the story. And she had said that she had walked with him to this room to get some medicine and also to look at some photographs that he wanted to show her. And this is when he had some sexual advances toward her that she didn't want, and it was basically self-defense. I would never want to say that a sexual assault is not true, that somebody is pretending, because that's never really the case. And this may still be the case of why she initially shot him, but the police found her with a gun and her purse full of more than 50 shells. And also back at Sharon and Samuel's hotel room, they found 2 more guns and many more shells. And one of the guns was the one that was matched through ballistics that was found to be the murder weapon of Patricia Jones. But because of double jeopardy and the fact that Sharon was already acquitted of that murder, she could not be tried again for it. But she actually had to stay in Mexico, and on October 18th, she was convicted of murder and sentenced to 10 years in Mexican prison. She tried to appeal and she got a new case, which gave her 13 years instead of 10, because the Mexican police did not care that she was trying to manipulate them. They didn't even listen to it. And this was horrific in her mind because she had always been able to manipulate people before. She couldn't now, and she got an even greater sentence. They did this because they said that it was a good possibility that she was attempting robbery in that hotel room when it led to her having to shoot Francisco. After she knew she wasn't able to manipulate the Mexican police, she actually said, "I've shot many men and gotten away with it." And the press in Mexico called her, I don't know Spanish, so I'll write it on the screen, but it basically means the holster. Everyone knew her. She was a huge name in Mexico as basically a crazy lady, but she was in prison, so it was fine. But 5 years into her stay at the, I'll write it right here, Mexican prison, she escaped. So it was December 7th of 1969, and she wasn't there for her 5 p.m. roll call. They didn't think much of it, but the second roll call during the night, she also was not there. And so at 2 a.m., this was said to be a manhunt in the northern Mexican states because there was an inmate who had already gotten out of prison that she knew pretty well, and she was possibly going to see them. Some theorized that she had bribed the guards because there was a random blackout in the prison about the same time that she had gone missing, and there was also an unsecured door, which was normally not unsecured, but the prison admitted that they are a lot lower staffed than they probably should be. More theories say that she had a Mexican boyfriend that was a policeman, or that her mother somehow was involved in getting her out, or that she disguised herself as a man to get out, because this was a woman's prison. Some even believe that Francisco Ordez's family got her out just so they could kill her themselves. But the manhunt ended on December 18th because they believed that she had already crossed the Mexican border to Guatemala. But the FBI did keep an eye on her mother and her brother, who now lived in Alaska, but there were never any signs of Sharon. I think that the most likely theory is that she kind of seduced her way out of the prison, that she had done many times before with many different men. She got some of the guards to like her enough to help her get out. And once she got out, she either already knew someone or she found a lonely rich man to take care of her. She changed her name, her looks, and she just lived a regular life far away from the US. And at this point now, she had learned a lot of Spanish from being in Mexico for all these years, so she could have easily fit in now. But how do you think Sharon Kinne got out of prison, and what do you think happened to her? I think it's scary because she could probably seduce and manipulate her way in and out of anywhere. As of 2018, she would be 78, but her whereabouts are still unknown. This is what she would look like today, and if you have any info, call the Kansas City FBI Field Office Tips Hotline at 816-474-TIPS or www.fbi.gov. She actually still has a warrant out for failing to appear to her husband's murder trial, and so she holds the oldest outstanding murder warrant in the Kansas City area. Now, even though Mexican prisons are supposedly so much worse than the ones in the US, she made a good life for herself there. She ran the store in there. She was said to have made many friends, but the prisoners were also scared of her. So much so that the media actually gave an interview to her where she just said, "I'm just an ordinary girl," when in fact she loved having everybody fear her and her ability to seduce anyone she wanted. So please thumbs up if you like hearing me talk about these cases, and subscribe if you want more true crime. And please answer me down below, what do you think? Where is Sharon? How angry does it make you that the murder weapon of Patricia Jones was found and she can't get justice? How angry, because it makes me so very angry. Well, and the fact that James, her own husband, doesn't get that justice because she disappeared. This case is one of the craziest I've ever researched, and you guys you let me know your thoughts down below. But my heart goes out to Patricia's family. That poor girl who was not only being cheated on, but was murdered for it just because she wouldn't leave her husband. All I can say is I hope that Sharon Kinne, wherever she is no longer murdering. Maybe she got her head straight and said, if I'm gonna stay hidden, I gotta stop this. Let's just hope, because she's been out for a very long time. That could mean a lot of people. But I will let you guys go. Bye.
The ability to disappear is easy. You just have to care less about your sanity.